The views and opinions expressed on My Story Living with Lupus podcast represents each person's individual experience. By listening to this podcast or reading our blog, you agree not to use this podcast or blog as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. As always, consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. My Story Living with Lupus podcast is officially trademarked, all rights reserved. Thank you for joining me for another episode of My Story Living with Lupus. I am your host, Susan Hendricks, and I'm so glad that you could join me on this Friday, May 1st, 2020. With all that this country has been going through in regards to the pandemic and the stress of day-to-day living, have you found yourself in deep thought about the future? Have you asked yourself this question? If what you're doing today will get you closer to where you want to be tomorrow. So, from the United States all the way to Australia, grab your cup of coffee, your cup of tea, and to those who are listening late at night, grab your favorite glass of wine and join the conversation right here on My Story Living with Lupus. Welcome back. You know, the future does not drop into our laps prefabricated the way it used to when society programmed the American way for just about everyone. In today's chaotic swirl, you get the future you want by making it happen. So, allow me to ask you this. If what you're doing today will get you closer to where you want to be tomorrow. The daily pressures to act, to do, to decide make it difficult to stop and think, to consider and to examine your goals, directions, and most importantly, priorities to find the best choices for you. Yes, this time is challenging. The loss has been great. But if you are listening to this podcast, guess what? You have the opportunity to change your future to what you want it to be. Change your mindset and start believing in yourself and what you deserve to have out of life. Look, allow me to tell you about my time in lockdown. I had to go back and rethink a lot of things. Now, there are those who think to look at my physical appearance, there is nothing wrong with me. But internally, I'm fighting every day to stay alive and healthy. I have learned to condition my way of thinking by turning my health issues into a positive for me. Now you may ask, how can she turn all her health issues into a positive? And my reply to those who think that is just because I have been deemed physically disabled due to my health conditions. My mind is still functioning. My illness does not define my intellect. My illness does not command me to just shut up, lay down when the flares hit, stop living because my heart stopped, malfunction, or a better way to put it, I had a heart attack. Stop walking because I had 2 strokes. Stop enjoying life, period. What my mind does tell me is to get up despite the pain. Stop allowing negative people along with their negative energy enter my space. My mind tells me, for those who see me based on the outside, is to educate them about what I'm dealing with daily. Yes, my mind tells me not to take life for granted and just settle for the status quo. When my body feels that it cannot go any further, my mind tells me, Susan, you got this. Keep it moving forward. My mind tells me that it is time to go back to the drawing board called life and to start rewriting, redefining my life. You see, the compilations of my life is all about being real and true. And I want you, those who suffer from chronic illness, to really ask the question if what you're doing today will get you closer to where you want to be tomorrow. No one will have the same exact answer. Now, allow me to ask you these questions. During the pandemic, I have been doing what? During the pandemic, I wish I could have, woulda, have what? During the pandemic, I learned to do what? During the pandemic, I decided to do what? During the pandemic, I decided to change what? If you would like to appear on an episode of My Story Living with Lupus, you can contact us at mystorylivingwithlupus@gmail.com. Also visit us on our Instagram page and also our website, My Story Living with Lupus. You know, those of us who have invisible illnesses, the public has a perception in regards to us. They think we are lazy, spending all day in bed, sitting down. We have difficulty keeping up with our personal hygiene. We don't clean the house. All we do is sleep, watch TV, stay on social media, and complain all the time about how we feel. They say that we want pity, and I say they are incorrect. Now, we can see on social media there are those who have chronic illnesses, and it's like it's a competition going on between one person with another. I was in the hospital before you were. This is what is wrong with me. Or you may see people on social media stating, "Oh, I'm in so much pain today. Should I go to the hospital or should I call my doctor?" Now, those statements, "should I call my doctor," should be an automatic response by the person who is stating that. Yes, there are those who want pity parties, and that's their preference, okay? But for those who are newly diagnosed and don't know what's ahead, down the road for them, if they were to come on social media and see all of the going back and forth, one or two things could happen. It will either put them in a deep depression, or they'll get scared, and God knows what else they may try to do. So that is why it's so important, even though you have a chronic illness, invisible illness, to rewrite your life plan. You see, I'm not asking you to be like me or to do what I do. What I'm trying to get you to do is open your mind. You are oh so talented. You have some hidden talents within yourself. And if you go deep down within your heart's desire and start formulating a plan on how you could go about doing what you want to do, you'll find yourself much happier. You'll find yourself enjoying life more. You see, the secret to a resilient life in the world that we are living in today is knowing how to recycle yourself repeatedly. Letting go of what is no longer you, taking on new strength, and shaping new chapters for your life, guided by your own emerging vision. You are the only one who can open the doors into the next chapter of your life. Do not allow your illness to define you. If what you're doing today will get you closer to where you want to be tomorrow, then fine. What are you doing today to make your life better for you? No one will have the same exact answers. Stay with me, and I'll tell you what I have planned for the month of May. Coming up in the month of May, I will be kicking off. It's all about what you place in your body. That is right. I will be discussing nutrition and how it can affect individuals with chronic illness, the good, bad, and the ugly. We'll have interviews with a nonprofit organization based out of Colorado Springs. We'll also have interviews from individuals with lupus telling their story like no one can. Before I go, I would just like to let you know I appreciate you for tuning in this Friday, May 1st, 2020. But what we need to do is always lean into the future When the world changes against you, what used to be a tailwind is now a headwind. You have to lean into that and figure out what to do, because complaining isn't a strategy. Jeff Bezos. I'm Susan Hendricks, your host for My Story Living with Lupus. You have a blessed, productive, and positive weekend. I'll see you guys next week for another episode. The views and opinions expressed on My Story Living with Lupus podcast represents each person's individual experience. By listening to this podcast or reading our blog, you agree not to use this podcast or blog as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. As always, consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. My Story Living with Lupus podcast is officially trademarked, all rights reserved.